right.
Just throwing money around. There it is. Where's our applause? Look, applause is like, you know the dolls where you wind it up in the back and it gets going. The applause, that's our wind-up thing.
It's been a while. We've took a week off and we're not used to applauding.
No one's used to liking us after a week. That's how it goes.
It's a foggy California day.
Okay, Wade, nice jacket. Anyway, what I'm saying is that it's a big show. First of all, David Leaf is here. He produces fantastic documentary. Maybe I should do it the right way. I can do it here and you can see it better. Look at that.
There you go.
Yeah, great documentary on Harry Nillson. Well, is it Nilsson or Nielsen? I keep wanting to say Nielsen. It's Nilson. That's what you get from missing staff meetings.
Good Scandinavian name.
We don't have staff meetings here. Anyway, also, by the way, next week.
What's happening next week?
Laura Keitlinger is here.
Woo!
Now,
Awesome.
Laura Keitlinger, she is providing our Celebrity Try This at Home. Now, the Celebrity Try This at Home is a little movie we like to call Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer, which, by the way, I saw
for Halloween.
For Halloween
special.
Which I saw with my father at the New Art Theater when it was NC-17, Wade, NC-17.
That's right.
You know, now...
No children under 17 admitted, but children over 17 can...
Go nuts.
Come one, come all.
That's right. And that was back in the 80s. You released that now, and it's on like the Disney Channel.
That's true.
It's like it comes on right after Hey Gabba Gabba.
Fox Family.
It's like Yo Gabba Gabba and then Henry Portrait of a Serial Killer.
Yo Henry.
That's how it goes. All right, so Laura Keitlinger, you have 1 week to watch Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer. It's a great film. It's a great recommendation. And Laura, funny. Laura will bring the funny next Thursday, 8 p.m. Pacific time. Right, Wade?
Absolutely.
Okay, now what are we doing? What are we doing, Wade? Go, say it loud, say it proud. What are we doing?
This weekend in movies.
I guess we're getting ready for Halloween.
That was a very Halloween-y kind of woo.
I got to say that for a change. That was kind of special.
I realize that, here's the thing.
That's kind of nice.
Here's the thing. Usually I'm the one...
I could get used to that.
I'm the one who drives the show. I say the stuff, whereas Wade brings the smart. I think we're going to have to switch that up a little bit. I think I have to occasionally...
Are you up to that?
I don't know, man.
Can
I feel like... But if you bring the smart and you move the show along, I'll be sitting here doing nothing. And by the way, don't applaud that. That's not fair. Oh, how dare you.
Shall we start?
Too soon? Yes, we should start with...
We're going to start with Hereafter.
Yes.
Hereafter is Clint Eastwood's latest film. This is like 7th film in 7 years, something incredible like that. He's been on an unbelievable clip. He is now 80, believe it or not. Clint Eastwood is 80 years old. And obviously he's starting to think about his mortality a little bit. Hereafter is a really interesting, almost metaphysical drama in which Matt Damon, there are 3 separate stories in the film, but the one that everyone's focusing on is the Matt Damon story, wherein he plays a psychic who doesn't really like being a psychic. And everything in his life is pain because he's able to connect to the hereafter, and people still seek him out to somehow help commune with their deceased loved ones. Do we have a clip?
We do.
Let's see a clip.
Can I ask you a question?
Would it be okay if I told you the answer was no?
You don't even know what I was gonna ask.
Yes, I do. You can ask me if I can do a reading for you. Look, Melanie, I barely know you, but I like you a lot, really a lot. And is there any way we could just pretend that maybe we go back in time and just forget about the phone ringing and my brother's message, and we never had this conversation?
Why?
Because if we open the door and go down that road, any chance that we had of having something normal will just be gone. I mean, sometimes, you know, knowing everything about someone, it's, you know, it seems nice, but really, maybe it's actually better to hold stuff back.
So that scene with Bryce Dallas Howard is really uncomfortable, and it's a really interesting part of the movie. She's not in a lot of it, but it's that particular relationship is pretty slick. The film itself, I really liked a lot. I thought it was provocative. I thought it raised a lot of interesting questions. It didn't play the whole connect to the hereafter angle for exploitative gain. It didn't play it for sensationalism. It's not like Ghost. It's not like Brainstorm. It isn't like any of the movies that have ever been made before. It's maybe not as deep as it should be. It doesn't sort of reach any great philosophical conclusions, but it does make you think, which is more than I can say for most films that I see these days.
I guess. I certainly did not buy it as much as you did. In fact, I remember we went to the same screening. We sat in separate places, and I was watching the film, and I didn't quite buy it. I thought that Clint Eastwood was a little out of his wheelhouse, even though he is 80 years old.
His wheelhouse?
Yes.
What's a wheelhouse?
Well, the sort of films that Clint Eastwood usually does. He usually doesn't do these movies about like death and tsunamis and that kind of stuff.
Okay.
He doesn't really mount that stuff. And I remember going up to where you were sitting.
Yeah.
I was going to say to you.
I was in a special place.
I was going to say to you, I didn't really buy that, and you were like, you were over the moon over it. But you had to admit that you slept on it, and it faded. You sleep
on it, and it fades. Yes. It definitely fades. But it didn't fade a lot. I was still thinking about it, and I still think, you know, I wouldn't mind seeing it again. You know, it's an enjoyable film. And the three separate stories, you know, it's not like Babel or a lot of these other multi-threaded movies where you have a real kind of metaphysical, existential subtext to the way that everything integrates. It really is three separate stories, the Matt Damon story, the French journalist, and the kids in London, and they do all sort of get onto a track and eventually converge in a very, very conventional way, which is surprising for Peter Morgan, who I think is probably the best screenwriter in the world, with The Queen and countless other great films to his name.
Damned United?
Damned United. Really an amazing screenwriter, but still, it's a very thoughtful script, and it's an original script, and it's one that I think has a certain personal touch to it, so I appreciated that.
I didn't buy even the baseline of it, which is that in the movie, Matt Damon plays somebody who can speak to the dead, and I think that he is convinced, and the audience is convinced, that he really can. Basically, the movie starts with a guy who really can speak to the dead.
Yes.
And so right at the top, I didn't buy it, because not that I believe or don't believe people can speak to the dead.
But you can speak to the dead, and it doesn't work like that.
I talk to you every Thursday at 8 p.m. Pacific time.
There you go. This is what we
What's
do.
wrong with that? It's good comedy.
This is the funny.
This is the funny?
This is the funny.
The internet is canceled.
Okay.
So right baseline I didn't buy, because I felt it would have been more interesting if it was like an inquiry into whether or not he's a fraud, he's not a fraud, can he speak to the dead, would you want to, all this stuff. So right at the baseline, it's a little, not science fiction, but a little phony to me.
It does require a leap. What I like about that stuff, though, is that Clint, whenever he does the little touch the hands thing, where, you know, it triggers it. Let me just touch you. There's always a flash. And it's a flash of the hereafter, a flash of someone and some kind of silhouette-y people somewhere, and that's all you get. You don't sort of then go into heaven or go into the hereafter or into the void and see things. There's just a brief glimpse. And then the rest is all what he tells and what he spells out in dialogue. And
but what he spells out in dialogue is so typical of these movies. Like, oh, your father was blah, blah, your sister was blah, blah.
You would say it if he was doing a reading of you.
Because I don't have a sister.
Oh, but you have a cat. Or had a cat.
I had a cat.
You had a cat.
I had the same cat from when I was 4 till I was 21. What do you think of that?
He loves this story. You tell the story, you always find a way to tell this story.
I've never told the story on by the way, it's not a story. I just had a cat for 17 years. But what I'm saying, I've never told it on the show. The end.
Plays well.
Huh? It doesn't play well. And by the way, thanks to that cat, to this day, when I sleep, don't use a pillow. Why? Because when you're 4 years old, you want your cat to be happy. You let him sleep on the pillow. Because I'm 4 years old, I want my cat to be happy. Well, you know what? I had the cat for 17 years. So for 17 years, he slept on the pillow. I'm 21 years old, cat dies, pillow? I don't know what you're talking about.
Is this a movie show?
Anyway.
How is Mark single? I don't know. This is, ladies, come on. All right.
Anyway, so so just to wrap up here, after there's a terrific sequence with Bryce Dallas Howard. Bryce Dallas Howard and Matt Damon meet at a cooking class because Matt Damon's kind of trying to get out of his comfort zone, takes a cooking class, and there's a very sexy, really good scene where they're partnered up in this cooking class, and in order to get to sort of in order to test other senses, Bryce Dallas puts a blindfold on herself, and then he feeds her, and I found that a very sexy, a terrific scene.
Well, it's also an interesting scene because it sort of parallels what he does, that you're relying on other senses, and you know, she appreciates that, but then gets a little freaked out later on. It's interesting. It's a lot of interesting symbolism in the film.
Okay, by the way, before we move on, there's something very important we have to say, and I think I speak for Wade.
Yes.
When we Wade, look into the camera with me. You don't know what I'm going to say, but you're going to agree with me. Clint Eastwood, stop scoring your own films.
Oh, totally.
You are the worst composer ever.
Yeah.
Ever. I don't know what it is with you where you think you can score your own. First of all, look, I didn't like Lenny Niehaus. Not a big fan of Lenny Niehaus. Then you had your son Kyle score your films. That was pretty bad. Then for some godforsaken reason, you started scoring your films. They all sound the same. They're this little simple, tinkly piano thing that's the same tempo, same instrumentation. You lay it over. Feels like a terrible temp track. And it feels like a track where you would go to the composer and say, listen to this and do the opposite. But instead, he says, no, here's the score.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know why he scores his own movies. It's terrible.
I don't know.
Okay.
I concur.
No, but okay, one last thing. How good would Hereafter be? Not that much better, because I didn't like the movie. But how much better would it be if you got somebody, Alexander Desplat, to do that score?
It would be great. I think Desplat's starting to be a little bit repetitive himself, though. I got to confess, after the film that I saw today, that you saw last night, which we won't talk about yet. But I do think that he's starting to sort of repeat himself a little bit. He's doing too many movies at the same time.
That is true.
Because I mean, it used to be one film a year. You can knock a great score out that way. But when people start paying you, you know, big money, big six-figure money, you want to do a lot of movies a year. So you start, you know, cut and paste.
Very true. All right, producer Mike wants us to move on.
Okay, we're moving on.
We're moving on. All right, so the next film is Carlos. Now, I'd like to say something about Carlos.
About my friend Carlos?
Yes.
Cool.
Do you have a friend named Carlos? No, you don't.
I've known people named Carlos, a number of them.
Do you know this guy?
No, I don't know. Who is he?
Carlos the Jackal, who was a Venezuelan terrorist in the 70s and 80s. Did you know him?
I may have.
Okay, exactly.
I got to go check my Rolodex.
Well, I hope you didn't, because okay, here's the thing with Carlos. So Carlos, which was made, is actually made for French television, and it's getting a brief theatrical release, and then at the same time it's on the Sundance Channel. But let me tell you something about Carlos. Carlos is 5.5 hours long. 5.5 hours long, Wade.
I hear you.
You realize that Carlos is 5.5 hours long. And because I love this show, and I love our listeners, viewers, whoever you are, I watched 5.5 hours of Carlos, Wade. 5.5 hours of Carlos, Wade. Can I tell you something?
Huh.
It's really good.
Is it?
It's great.
It only felt like 4.5.
Huh?
It was so good.
It only felt like
5:25.
It was fantastic.
You know, that's like a month. That's like more than a month's worth of Desperate Housewives.
I've never seen Desperate Housewives.
Why would you watch Desperate? Oh, whatever.
Anyway,
Stay away
so
from TV. Stick to movies.
So Carlos was directed by Olivier Assayas, and he is a director who I do like a lot. Don't like all of his films. His last film, Summer Hours, won the Oscar for Best Foreign Film, and sort of an upset. People thought it would be a profit. It wound up being Summer Hours, and this is his new one. Again, it was done for French television. And before we talk about the film, what it's about, what I thought of it, let's take a look at a clip.
Momento de la acción. Tenete a todos los revolucionarios juntos luchando al mismo tiempo. ¿Tú me dices arrogante? Pues sí, no jodas, soy un arrogante.
How long have you been with us? You are still a boy. I need men.
So you don't trust me because I'm young?
You have to prove yourself.
Like you, I strongly believe that the Palestinian struggle should take on an international level. And I will be honored to contribute some of my modest skills.
Choose a code name.
It's such an interesting story. Edgar Martinez plays Carlos, and when Carlos was young, he joined this pro-Palestinian revolutionary group, and he was pretty flamboyant. He really wanted to be part of this pro-Palestinian group. He wound up taking hostages at the French embassy, which is a big famous event back in France during the 70s. And also, so that's pretty much part one of the movie. Part one of the movie is Carlos establishing himself with this pro-Palestinian group and taking hostages at the French embassy. Part two is really bravura stuff. It's the entire part two pretty much is when Carlos and a bunch of his other revolutionary friends wound up taking hostages at an OPEC summit meeting. And the whole idea there was that these revolutionaries were afraid, Carlos was afraid, that some of these OPEC oil ministers were starting to side with the West, which of course if you side with the West, you're siding with Israel, and Carlos doesn't like that. And then part three winds up being kind of his downfall. And what I loved about the film is that even though it's 5.5 hours long, it's exciting. It is very clean storytelling. It is all really well done. The guy who plays Carlos is fantastic. There's a lot of riveting set pieces. Again, this OPEC hostage-taking crisis is like an hour and 20 minutes of the film, and it's great because you get into all the machinations of what he wants, and he can't get it. Is he going to get the plane? Can the plane fly where he wants it to fly? Well, the whole idea is that the OPEC minister is supposed to be assassinated. Will Carlos actually do that? If he doesn't, what are the ramifications? Gets into the whole thing. So So part 2 is fantastic. It starts to get into a slog a little bit in part 3 because what happens is Carlos eventually, he starts as a revolutionary who really believes what he believes. But then he starts to kind of believe his own press. He wears the beret that Che Guevara wore. And he starts to become this international figure, this famous international terrorist. And then when the world starts to change, he doesn't really know where he fits. So he just sort of becomes a mercenary. And then he sort of loses his ideals and he just sort of goes with whoever will pay him. So then he sort of loses what the fire that he had at the beginning. And this whole arc is played out really very slowly, obviously, because it's 5.5 hours, but it's played out really cleanly and slowly and logically, and it's really interesting. The thing is that because it doesn't end in this Scarface blaze of glory, it does peak a little soon. It peaks pretty much after the OPEC hostage-taking crisis, because again, the end of it is not that, you know, he's buried in an amount of cocaine like Scarface. He really just sort of fritters away. So the movie does peak kind of soon, and the ending itself is a little soft, but it's truthful to what happened to him, but it is soft. But again, I'll take that because everything that came before it is so exciting and so well done and so well mounted. All the characters who come in and out of his story, the arc of Carlos, it's just really interesting stuff.
So
it's really good.
So when we're talking about the entire spectrum of overlong movies about psychopaths,
yes.
Better than Che.
I didn't like Che.
I didn't either. And it sounds like the same trajectory as Mayreen. Did you ever see the second half of Mayreen, to be honest?
Yes, I did.
It's good, right?
It is good.
See?
Wade and I talked about a film called Mayreen, which is about a French terrorist.
Well, criminal.
Criminal.
Yeah, I guess. A famous, basically like the, Bonnie and Clyde and Dillinger and all those guys wrapped into one.
Add another 16 hours and you've got yourself Carlos.
Okay.
That's how
that was 4.5 hours.
Mayreen was 4.5 hours.
Mayreen was 4.5.
Well, as we said before, this was made for French television. So, and even though it was made for French,
Mayreen was made for Swedish television. Isn't that weird?
Not really.
Okay.
So it was made for French television, but it's still very cinematic.
Yeah.
We've talked about the Girl with the Dragon Tattoo trilogy, where the first one is a film, but the second two were made for television.
Yeah.
So the second two of the Girl with the Dragon Tattoo trilogy, they feel a little more TV than the first one, whereas this one feels cinematic all the way through. It's really well done. Why are you smiling? What are you thinking? Wade's got a thing in his thing.
I don't.
He wants to say
I'm just thinking of all of these great European television productions, and I'm thinking, what do we have here? We've got, I don't know, some Justine Bateman movie from 1985.
Really sure. No, but
we just don't have great television here.
No, but see, here's the thing, and this is getting off Carlos, which look, Carlos is also being released in one combined 2.5 hour chunk. Now, I didn't see the 2.5 hour chunk because I love this show and our viewers. I watched the whole damn 5.5 hours.
Which cut is going to be awards eligible?
It's interesting. First of all, a lot of it is in English, which the Academy always has a problem with because a percentage of the movie has to be in a foreign language. Also, it premiered on French television. And it's on the Sundance Channel.
But in terms of qualification as just in general for Oscar consideration, for regular Oscar, not as a foreign language film, but just regular Oscar, Best Picture, Best Director, all that kind of stuff, is one of those two cuts going to qualify? Because, like Das Boot, for example. Das Boot was recut into about a 2.5 hour film, originally on German television, but it was released here as a 2.5 hour film and qualified as a feature film released in the United States in the calendar year 1983.
I think it could. Look, nobody's going to watch the 5.5 hour version. So the 2.5 hour version is the one that.
But is the 5.5 hour also being released theatrically? That can.
Yes, no. The 5.5 hour is the one that's being released on Friday.
Okay, but not simultaneously with IFC? Well, never mind.
Wade, get more inside baseball, Wade.
Okay.
Let's talk about the theatrical distribution strategy of the platforming release.
Okay.
No, we can't do that.
All right.
It's way too boring. Okay, so here's what we've learned. We've learned that Hereafter, I didn't buy it, you liked it.
I like it quite a lot.
Carlos.
I think most people will enjoy it, but if you're just kind of a cynical old bastard like you are, you probably won't.
Well, it's not very nice.
No, it's not.
Carlos, I liked a lot. I thought it was just terrific.
I guess I'll watch it then.
If you can,
I haven't had time.
If you can't spend 5.5 hours on it, I totally get it. Try to seek out the 2.5 hour version, or if you have the Sundance Channel, check it out on the Sundance Channel because it's very, very good. Cool. All right, so that's it, Wade. That's this weekend in movies.
Whoa. So odd.
Anyway, all right, so Wade, we've talked about Carlos, an international terrorist who kills people, shoots people in the head, makes people die en masse. The guy is just one of the worst people ever. Do you think Philip Nillson would recommend that to his kids on Parental Guidance?
Absolutely.
Do you really? All right, let's do Parental Guidance. Philip, you got no applause. We got
tough crowd.
We got very half-ass applause. You got no applause.
Something in the
Obviously,
air.
it's just not happening.
A lot of love.
All right, Philip. So now you're back home. You were with us a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, it was great to be in the studio with you guys.
Great to have you here.
Wait, by the way, Philip bought everybody pizza when he came. So anytime you want to come back. Now, by the way, let me just say, did David Leaf, the producer of Who's Harry Nillson, buy his pizza? No, he didn't.
He bought chocolate.
Chocolates! Look at that. Unbelievable.
I'm happy.
All right, I'm happy too. All right, so Philip, what do you have to recommend on Parental Guidance?
Well, this week I'm taking a recommendation from my 9-year-old daughter, Sage. This is one of her favorite movies, and it actually wasn't made as a kid's movie, but as we always say here on Parental Guidance, you know, a good family movie is not necessarily a movie for kids. It's a movie that families can watch together. And so this week's movie is Hereafter, starring Drew Barrymore.
Wow, I got
What?
the ladies. The
Yes,
ladies
it
love
is.
this.
You know, it's actually you know, I saw the trailer and thought it was going to be the dumbest movie of all time. Whenever she says "just breathe," and I was just like, no, that's horrible. So I actually, you know, I watched it. My wife wanted me to see it, and yes, I do watch chick flicks. It's good brownie points with the wife, and it actually was a good movie. Every now and then, you know, Hollywood does make a movie that's not a cheesy kids movie that doesn't have a lot of bad language, that doesn't have a lot of nudity, and is actually entertaining to the whole family. And so, you know, Hereafter is my selection this week. So let's go through the list of the rankings. As we do every week, we rank them on a scale from 1 to 5 in a couple of different categories, 1 being the lowest ranking and 5 being the highest. And in the action category, we're going to give this one a 3. It's not really an action movie, but there is, you know, chases and, you know, bandits robbing people, and, you know, it's got a little adventure in there, a very kid appropriate amount of adventure. So we're going to give that a 3 on our scale from 1 to 5 because it's right there in the middle. In the language category, I'm also going to give it a 3. It really has very, very little bad language. Because this is a family segment, I'm not going to say the words, but it has the S word in it one time, and it's not shut up, and the D word and the H word. So, you know, I'm going to give it a 3 because some parents, you know, when they watch movies,
there aren't kids watching this part. You can, it's the internet. You can say those words because parents want to know what those words are.
You know what I'm talking about, you people out there.
I'm lost. So I have no idea.
You're not going to goad me into saying bad words in the Parental Guidance segment. So the next category is peril. We're going to give that one right in the middle at 3 as well. You know, there's a scene where the prince is chasing a bad guy trying to get back Leonardo da Vinci's Mona Lisa, and they fall down a hill and fall into a river. And, you know, nothing really, you know, truly, you don't think anyone's going to die in this movie. But, you know, so it's right there in the middle. In the romance section, I'm going to give it a 4. It really is very light romance, more just, you know, goo-goo eyes at the prince type of romance and kissing and things like that. But it's nothing that's, you know, suggestive. It's very innocent romance, and I think it's a very wholesome romance. But I am going to give it a 4 because some parents don't even want their kids to see any kissing in a family movie. But, you know, I think as long as it's not in a sexy way, it's okay. It's a natural part of life. See, you know, kids should see their parents kissing. It's not a bad thing. So
you are romantic.
I know. And then on the adult enjoyment factor, I'm going to give it a 5. I actually give this very, very high on the adult enjoyment factor because it's not a kid's movie. It's a family movie, or it's in a movie made for, you know, young adults that is appropriate for kids. And it's one that my wife made me go see, and I actually ended up liking, and we own it. I actually have the DVD right here. You know, I highly recommend it. It's a fun one to watch. My 12-year-old son wasn't thrilled to watch it. But, you know, last week we did Alex Rider, Operation Stormbreaker for him. So this week the girls get Hereafter.
You know, I like Hereafter. Here's the thing with Hereafter. It was directed by Andy Tennant, who is a pretty untalented guy. But the best movie he did was Hereafter.
That's true.
I mean, The Bounty Hunter? How bad was that? Hitch?
Oh,
Hitch was okay. I guess Hitch is okay.
Hitch has its moments.
Yes.
Yeah.
But this movie here, Ever After, is the best thing he's done. I like this movie.
I would agree.
Drew Barrymore is, you know, she was at that age where she could be sort of that young fairy tale type princess character.
It's a reinvention of something classic into something a little bit hipper and modern, and you know, those kinds of things are always interesting. Clueless is another one of those kinds of films. The reinvention thing, sometimes it works, and I think it does here.
Although, I have to say, in Peril, I was going to give it a 3.2.
Oh.
So I'm afraid that we disagree on that.
Mark,
the horse action is what pushed it over the edge for you, I guess.
Oh my gosh, this is a family film?
What?
Okay, never mind.
What kind of show is this?
What is this?
It's my kind of show. That's the kind of show this is.
Yeah, Mark grades everything on a diving scale.
What?
3.2.
Oh.
Come on.
By the way, on a scale of 1 to 100, that joke got a 5.
I went
a 5.
I was thinking you were talking about the
a 5.
Rodney Dangerfield movie. It was School. Something.
Back to School.
Back to School. We love Back to School.
But didn't, yeah, and that's all I thought was him diving off the diving board.
Yeah.
The diving
well, not just one, but you know.
That's the triple Lindy.
Yeah.
The triple Lindy.
Yep.
That's it.
The triple Lindy was the dive. That was it.
There it is.
Love that.
All right, Philip Nelson from Parental Guidance. That was fantastic. A great recommendation as usual. We'll see you next time. Philip Nelson,
Phil.
everybody. Let's do it.
See you guys later.
The Bounty Hunter. That movie was so bad. You know, here's
love the Bounty Hunter.
Here's what happens.
Gerard Butler is your man.
No, Gerard Butler and Jennifer Aniston have the type of chemistry that happens when two people are paid to pretend they have chemistry. That's what you get.
Kind of like Katherine Heigl and Josh Duhamel.
Kind of like Katherine Heigl in like Earth.
Okay.
Because she is just the worst of all time. My God, do I hate Katherine Heigl. Just don't get me started. All right, you know what? You know who I don't hate?
Who?
Say it, Wade!
Chad Vader!
I'm testing Wade this week. Wade has no idea what's going on from like moment to moment.
I sit down, Mark rambles, I occasionally chime in.
Oh,
I hear you, man.
There we go.
That was uncalled for. Hi, Chad.
Hey, how's it going?
Fantastic. So what's going on at the Empire Market? Anything fun? Funsville?
It's always fun at Empire Market. Every day is a new adventure.
Well, can you tell us what's happening in the news? How about that?
I certainly can. Dimension Films plans to revive the Hellraiser franchise and show us all the true meaning of suffering. Promising to take you to the further reaches of experience and make pleasure and pain indivisible, Todd Farmer and Patrick Lussier have been tapped to helm the reboot, much to the delight of horror fans, sullen goths, and S&M fetishists everywhere. The reboot promises to bring back all of your old favorite characters, including Nailhead, Pasty Face, Chattery Mouth, Fat, and Camera Head. Our suffering will be legendary, even in hell.
Oh, it's the worst.
Awful.
This is terrible. I didn't like all those cheesy 80s. You know, the thing with these 80s films is that they all cost like $2 million back in 1980, whatever.
Yeah.
Now they're going to throw $30 million at it and turn it into a horrible reboot.
The thing with Hellraiser was that it had the unique signature of Clive Barker, and I think redoing it, it's gonna be like all the Wes Craven films that they keep remaking. They don't feel the same when they're sort of divorced from his sensibilities, and I think you take Hellraiser away from Clive Barker, and suddenly it's gonna just feel like Dark City with maybe a little bit more gore.
Well, no. Look, it's always the same thing. It's a CW cast.
Yeah.
Right.
True.
And all of them are all half naked because they're at the lake or whatever it is. And then I didn't know.
They're in hell.
Are they in hell? Is that what it is?
Yeah.
I didn't know what Pinhead's thing. What is Pinhead's thing? I can't remember anymore.
Yeah,
he's some guy from hell.
Pins.
Huh?
No,
but he's from hell.
Call yourself a movie critic.
Yeah, he's from hell.
No, I call myself a lover of good movies, not like Hellraiser. Chad, stick up for me. Come on.
Pins.
Sorry, man, can't do it.
Yeah.
Well, fine then. Read another story. See if I care.
Okay. If that's how you want it, that's how you'll get it. M. Night Shyamalan's next film is something called 1000 AE, and it is currently being developed at Overbrook, Will Smith's production company. The film is thought that they think it's going to be a vehicle for Jaden Smith, but as of now, Will Smith has no plans to be in the film. Tensions were reportedly high between Shyamalan and Smith on their first meeting when Shyamalan spied Will Smith eyeing his lemon drink. "Why are you eyeing my lemon drink?" M. Night asked. "Oh, hell no," Smith responded, and things got more heated from there. But after a relaxing round of getting jiggy and making the necks work, both men calmed down, and things went a lot smoother.
What?
I don't really know how to interpret that.
I just can't believe he's still allowed to do movies, M. Night.
As
soon as he said M. Night,
no, but he didn't write
really?
this. No, but he didn't write this.
He's not directing it?
But
he's directing, but he didn't write it.
But he should not be allowed to do anything having to do with movies.
No, he's just, it's like ever since it's been straight downhill. Every time I think he can't possibly make a worse film than the last one, he does. He does. I mean, it's mind-boggling. Why can't we just toss him into the television bin and be rid of him?
And you've got to figure
Get
that
him a television series. Just let him create some crap on TV.
It's your typical failing upward. At least that's what happens in TV. It's always about failing upward.
Yeah.
That was a horrible thing. Oh, you've got a better job now. I guess it's the same.
But how many more movies does he have to screw up before people realize he's the kiss of death?
And what video does he have on Will Smith? Something maybe NC-17 rated, something to wind up on the internet to make Will Smith want to get in business with this guy who's done nothing but failures.
The question is, maybe these deals were in place before these movies keep coming out.
No, not this. Not this. This is
from Lady in the Water, which was really an unbelievable low point forward. Everything he's done has tanked. I don't see why
even worse than tank, because good movies can tank.
Yeah.
The thing is that it tanked and it sucked.
Yeah.
That's like a double whammy.
And so did Last Airbender.
You know it's bad when on our YouTube page, Last Airbender is one of the highest hits we have for our videos, and everybody agrees with you guys.
Yeah.
So you know, if we get full agreement that it's a horrible movie.
Awful.
So I don't know what this thing is about. Obviously, Will Smith is really trying to get his son Jaden Smith out there and really trying to cultivate him as an actor. I thought the kid was fine in Karate Kid. I thought it was all right. I kind of liked the Karate Kid, that reboot. It was very slow first hour, and then it kind of grew into itself, and it was okay.
You can see that on the Blip page or YouTube page or stupidformovies.com, the review of you guys did of that.
Yeah.
That is very true.
That's how I integrate.
Yeah, well done. All right, Chad, what else is going on in the world?
Well, Mel Gibson will not be appearing in The Hangover 2. Director Todd Phillips wanted the foul-mouthed maniac to do a cameo in the movie, and he had the support of producer Jack Robinoff. But he has since changed his mind due to protests from some members of the cast and crew, mainly co-star Zach Galifianakis. When reached for comment, Mel had the following to say about the situation, and I quote, "I think that, and I want to, and I got an embarrassment. You sugar tit. Thank you." End quote.
Yeah. And the streamy for this profanity-laden rant goes to
Chad, for sure.
Exactly. Well, here's the thing: is that Mel Gibson is going to need to go on some sort of apology tour. He's got to figure it out. The guy's not going to disappear forever.
But he's got to disappear for a while.
Oh yeah.
He's got to go away for a while.
And Larry King is his thing. Larry King is retaring. Mel's got to go on Larry King before he retires.
He does.
You go Piers Morgan. Who wants to retire on Piers Morgan?
Softballs? Who else throws softballs?
After Marv Albert bit that prostitute, how long did he go away for?
Is he back?
Oh yeah, he's been back for a few years.
Yeah, but no, yeah. Has he been on Letterman since? Because that was the big thing with Marv Albert. It was always the Letterman apperances on the old Letterman show.
Yeah, he hasn't been on Letterman since, but he's working again. But he went away for like 3 years. Was it about 3 years?
But here's the thing, though. But
he chomped a hooker and then went away for 3 years. Came back. He's working again. So.
Yeah, but the thing is that. But the thing
with
Burn
coming up. How'd you know that? Chomp the hooker.
Chomp the hooker. But the thing with Marv Albert is that, yes, he does national games, but he's also a local guy. But whereas Mel Gibson, he doesn't do a movie unless it costs $150 million. He is one of the biggest celebrities we have.
But for Mel, it's interesting because he's lately been making his own movies, right? I mean, the most recent thing, Edge of Darkness, was his first acting gig in quite a long time. I mean, he hadn't done just a straight acting role in years and years and years. It was just straight directing. And I'm not so sure that Mel even can make his own movies right now. I don't know who'd distribute them.
And who? Well, Mel can pay for his own movies. He has enough money. Not that
but
he
they
wants
got to get distributed.
That is very true. He's going to distribute his movies. Because also too, and then we'll say goodbye to Chad finally.
Yeah.
The thing with the thing with hang on, Chad. You can yell at me in a second. The thing with Mel is that if you're the studio, do you want Mel Gibson in this movie?
I would say.
It's one thing to say Mike Tyson, but do you want Mel Gibson?
I would say you want him after the apology tour. So you would put him in the movie, and you'd shoot the movie, and then while the movie's in post, send him out on his apology tour, and let the apology tour be kind of a marketing preface for the release of the film.
Nice.
Look at that, huh? Crisis management with Wade Major. Look at that. Well done. All right, Chad. So that's it, right?
That's it.
Well, then go back to selling at the Empire Market, Chad.
Okay, see you later, you. Hope you.
He's so sweet.
Chad Vader, everybody, come on! Bringing the funny, bringing the funny.
It.
Now, Wade, it's a very special time in the show, Wade.
Yes,
we're going to have a very special documentary producer here in mere moments, ladies and gentlemen, David Leaf, to talk about this fantastic documentary. Camera 2, camera 3, thank you, Jesus Christ.
Oh, by the way, this is J-Mac is not here. This is Emily running the TriCaster.
Emily's doing a great job.
Yes. J-Mac, we got him an actual production job on a VH1 show, and then what does he do? Not come and work here anymore.
Oh.
Now he's got a great real job now. Congratulations to J-Mac.
J-Mac.
TV.
Wait, does that mean J-Mac will not be here ever for the next X number of weeks?
J-Mac will be back when his production job is over, which I believe is like 6 weeks. It's TV. It'll be done pretty soon.
All right, we're praying for cancellation so J-Mac can come back. Praying for cancellation,
Studio Emily on Twitter we got to call her TriCaster Emily, and she's doing a fantastic job.
Yay, TriCaster Emily. All right, TriCaster Emily, you know what it's time to do now, TriCaster Emily? Cue up the Buy-Rent or Burn graphic, go!
There it is. It's going. She usually runs sound, so now sound's not being stopped. You see? Yay! That was
I was looking at my script. Here we go. Yay! All right, here's how Buy, Rent, or Burn works. Mike will give us a movie. Wade and I will say whether you should buy, rent, or burn it. Go, Mike!
Yes, these have never been seen before. I picked these from the message boards, which, by the way, we haven't gone to in a little bit. StupidForMovies.com message boards. But a lot of people were getting mad that we weren't on the message boards. I am still checking them. So hopefully there's no overlap, because what they did is trick us, and sometimes they'll ask in the chat room the same thing on the message boards. It's very confusing. So hopefully, message boards, here we go.
Okay.
Peeping Tom on the message boards asks about performance.
Oh, come on, Mick Jagger.
Rent.
I would say rent, performance, but I would say buy Peeping Tom.
No, that's his name.
But,
all right, performance.
Buy Peeping Tom?
Really? Yeah, the movie.
Kind of dates.
Really? Peeping Tom.
Yes, it dates.
The Michael Powell film.
Yes, it dates.
Really? Who does it date? Is she cute?
Literally making a movie out of nothing. Okay, let's move on.
No, there was a movie called Peeping Tom. It's a famous movie. Michael Powell's fantastic. Buy that and rent performance.
It was interesting.
What are you saying about performance, Wade?
Rent.
Thank you.
For sure.
Okay, moving on. From Evil Pirated. Whatever. Failsafe.
Oh, I love Failsafe.
Failsafe is great.
Wait, by the way, which one? The Sidney Lumet original, which I like.
Or the George
Clooney
thing.
directed, yes.
Probably the original Sidney Lumet film.
I love that movie.
You know what's cool? Here's what you do. If you want to kind of give yourself a lesson on how to make a film, a comedy or a drama, go and get Failsafe and Dr. Strangelove and watch them back to back. Basically the same movie, except one's funny.
That is true. Pretty much the same story.
Same story.
Okay.
Exactly.
That's right. Failsafe is a great film. Sidney Lumet, one of my favorite directors.
Buy, rent, or burn.
Buy it.
Buy. Sorry, buy.
It's her first buy, rent, or burn.
Buy.
We'll make it obvious for you,
please.
Emily.
Buy.
TriCaster Emily.
And the audience at home would like to know. They don't want to hear you ramble. They just want a quick answer.
We were raving.
Okay. John Blund wants to know about Everything Gone Green.
Oh, that's the one with the kid from, what's his name, The Office, right? No, the other one. I forgot it. I don't like that movie.
No. No, burn.
Burn that. I forgot his name. Burn that.
Can't remember.
Okay. His face is on that.
I know,
on the one sheet. I forgot his name, but I didn't like the movie.
Not memorable. Burn.
All right, let's move on. Grypho wants to know about Elephant. These are all message boards.
Gus Van Zant's been in a very interesting phase lately, and I liked Elephant.
Elephant won the Cannes Film Festival that year. It is, it's all kind of connected to the Columbine mindset, the Columbine vibe.
I would say rent.
It's not specifically about. I'd almost say
rent
buy.
Do you want to buy that? Gee, honey, what do you want to watch tonight? Let's watch Elephant. It's about Columbine.
Rent it, and when you realize how good it is, buy it.
Oh, we don't have a card for that.
You got him up?
Let's agree to disagree.
Oh, it is. That's a Brent.
A Brent? Oh, I love that!
Corey came up with a Brent. I forgot, yes. That's
that is the greatest thing ever. That is fantastic.
All right. H3MPY, wife, I think I'm hearing my own writing, was very much complaining on the message boards that we weren't getting to the message boards.
All right.
We're back.
I can't believe.
King of New York.
Ooh.
Buy.
I'd buy that. Sure.
That is a killer performance by
Christopher Walken. Yeah.
That is a killer performance. And probably the last film that Abel Ferrara directed where he wasn't out of his complete skull.
I know. He doesn't make good movies anymore.
He's like...
When Abel Ferrara
is not, shall we say, pharmaceutically enhanced, he makes really good movies.
He does. Well, I love The Bad Lieutenant, and you hate that movie.
Yeah, he was pharmaceutically enhanced.
And his he
wasn't just he was a pharmaceutical by the time he made that movie.
That is true. And his take on Invasion of the Body Snatchers had a couple good moments, but I was disappointed.
That press conference at Cannes was hilarious. I know I've talked about it before.
All right, we got
Body
we got a couple more. One more from the
Nobody
chat
wants
room.
to hear about your Cannes press
Did
conference.
we give the buy, rents, or burns? We're already good, right?
Yeah.
Great. Studio Emily, who's now TriCaster Emily, asks about On the Town. And I think they had a little performance. They were singing earlier. Elaine and Emily were singing.
It's wonderful town.
It was much better in the kitchen.
Buy.
On the Town. They were dancing.
Buy.
And
Buy
now
that
it's the end of the week.
Anything with Gene Kelly and Frank Sinatra, you got to buy.
Yep. Buy it.
Okay, now let's go to the chat room. If you're watching us right now on Blip or iTunes or anything like that, you can join us in the chat room live every Thursday, 8 p.m., and we will get to your buy, rent, or burns. And here's a couple of them. Man Gotta Eat asks about Quadrophenia.
Wait a second. We just had a whole thing about Quadrophenia like 3 months ago.
It's a really good movie.
Yes, because I went to the Academy Theater to go see Quadrophenia,
Did we do a buy, rent, or burn?
and that's where I saw Ken Russell freak out.
Buy, rent, or burn. And we don't want to talk. We don't want to mention that name ever again.
It's a really good movie, but I'm going to say Brent.
What?
He just wanted.
Let's agree to disagree.
Oh, that's terrible. Pete Townsend is my own personal rock and roll god. You got to buy that thing right now. In fact, don't watch the show anymore. Go buy it. No, wait, watch the show and then buy it.
Brent.
Wait, buy it while you watch the show. Open up a separate window. Go on Amazon, buy it, and then watch us too.
I wonder if we can get him on Strip Down Live.
Wow.
Pete Townsend?
Yeah, he'd probably do it, right?
If you get Pete Townsend on Strip Down
we can
Live...
ask, right? Doesn't hurt to ask.
Oh, my God.
All right, let's do it. As Arlene says. Sorry.
Hang on, I'm dreaming of us getting Pete Townsend.
Us? You're not part of Strip Down.
Mark will be.
We don't have room for you.
Mark will be running through this studio naked.
Oh,
okay,
yes, I will.
A couple more. Skillas asks about in the chat room, That Thing You Do.
I like that movie.
I really like that thing
movie.
you do. I think that is. I'm going to say buy because it's a really fun movie. It's the only feature film that Tom Hanks has ever directed.
I'm going to say buy too. And by the way, I'm saying buy
is being directed. He's doing a second directorial effort theatrically this next year.
Yes, and he's been tweeting like hell on that movie. He's tweet picking whatever. Can I say something about That Thing You Do? I don't know why that song did not win the Oscar for best song.
I don't know why
that song was perfect. Here's why
nominated.
That makes no sense. Here's why that song is perfect. Because you can see how it would be number one. You can see how that song would be number one, but you can also picture yourself getting sick of it if you hear it too often. Yeah. It was like the perfect song.
Well, that's all. They played that. How many times in the movie do they play that song?
And Steve Zahn is hysterical in that movie.
What happened to that guy?
When he says, the Oneaters, come on, give it up.
Kevin Pollak was in it, as was Paul Feig. Paul Feig was also in it.
Yeah.
Freaks and Geeks, friend of ours.
That is it.
So
we like that movie a lot.
It's a really fun film.
Yep, I agree. Buy it.
One more from Nightmare 54, Red Heat.
Oh, God.
Burn.
Come on.
I think you guys burn every Nightmare 54 recommendation.
Well, but
by the way, just in case you don't know, Black Sky Radio does the music before the show. If you come here, we're live at 8. If you come on at 7, we show all these movie posters and some really great movie music.
Red Heat is arguably one of the films that sort of started to destroy Walter Hill's career as a director. You know, James Belushi and Arnold Schwarzenegger as a Russian. I mean, what? Really?
It's terrible.
It's that moment. It's that moment right at the tail end of the buddy movie streak when you had years of buddy movies and Lethal Weapon and all this stuff and 48 Hours and they were going, okay, we need a new buddy movie concept. I know. We'll get John Belushi's like less interesting, less fat brother and stick him with Schwarzenegger and throw some kind of a Rusky thing. I don't know. It'll work.
It didn't work.
It didn't work, not in the least.
I agree. I say burn that sucker. All right, so I say burn Red Heat. Now, by the way, Red Dawn, buy it. I'm throwing one in extra. You get an extra one. It's like a baker's dozen.
No one even suggested that.
It's a baker's dozen. I'm very generous. I'm saying go to Red Dawn, buy it. You agree or disagree?
No, I'd say rent, but whatever.
Okay.
Wait, say goodbye to the segment.
Bye, segment.
Before we go to the next thing, we have a question though. They want to know if we're going to wear costumes next week. It's Halloween special.
No.
Wasn't there? What was the bet? What was the harem girl bet?
I don't know what it was. I have no idea what it was.
If somebody buys Mark a harem girl outfit, he will wear it on the air. That was the agreement.
I might have said that.
Nobody's bought you one yet.
I'm just saying, I might have said that.
You'll notice I didn't make that bet.
Tweet me or Facebook me or message me, and I will give you a P.O. box to send that harem girl outfit to. And if we can get it by next Thursday, Mark will in fact be in costume.
Look at that, huh? This is where the rubber hits the road, folks.
You should not speak.
Really?
You don't think we have fans? I think somebody's going to come through.
Yeah, we have 1.3 million unique users. One of you guys.
Yeah.
I think we're at 1.6 or so. Well, overall. Overall. You guys aren't. You're at 1.134 million.
Thank you.
There you go.
Oh, we got an applause. Thank you very much. All right, so here's the situation. So far, in the year of our Lord, 2010, it's been a good year for documentaries, right?
Yeah.
You got Casino Jack and the United States of Money. You got Client 9 coming out. Got a lot of good documentaries.
Tillman Story.
Got Tillman Story, which will win the Oscar. Film Unfinished, which is great.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you something. I watched this documentary here. Who is Harry Nillson? It's right here.
And why is everybody talking about him?
Because Harry Nillson, it turns out, is a really interesting guy.
Fascinating.
And the producer of the documentary is here. David Leaf is right here. Now, before we bring him on, we want to show you a clip from the movie. Who is Harry Nillson? Roll it.
Everybody's talking at me. I don't hear words they're saying, only the echoes of my mind.
When you say Harry Nillson, everybody says, no, Harry Nillson, either they get it right away or they have no idea.
Gotta get up, gotta get out, gotta get home before the morning comes. What if I'm late? Got a big day, gotta get home before the sun comes up.
I was dialing a telephone, I got a busy signal, and it was going beep, 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 beep. And he just wrote it on the phone.
One is the loneliest number that you'll ever do.
He just came on the scene, you know, blasted onto the scene, and he just started influencing people. I'm sure he influenced the Beatles as much as the Beatles influenced him.
Nilsson's my favorite group.
The Beatles endorsed Harry.
Pronounced him to the world and said, listen to this man.
I thought to myself, this song really has the potential to be like a little animated cartoon. So I said, why don't you try using different voices? Think of the doctor saying, now let me get this straight. You put the lime in the coconut.
Put the lime in the coconut, you drink 'em poured up. Put the lime in the coconut, you drink 'em poured up.
While we were in Japan, the nominations had come out. Album of the Year, Record of the Year, Best Male Vocal Performance, Best Engineered Record. Whatever category it could have been nominated, it was nominated.
Love when it started was easy to measure. Each day was a pleasure, each night an adventure. Each morning was something that had to be shared together.
He spent most of his life in pursuit of a good time, and he caught it, and it caught him in the end.
I defer, Harry. Man, I don't know how far you want me to go with this.
David Leaf, everybody, come on! Give it up for him, the producer of Who is Harry Nillson. By the way, this documentary is fantastic.
Terrific.
Thank you. Know?
Really terrific.
And what I love about documentaries like this is it takes a guy who you don't know that much about, right? A guy who had the one hit. You know, he sang the song for Midnight Cowboy, and that's really all you know about him in a sense. And then you watch a film like this, and you realize he was so influential. He wrote all these other songs you didn't know about. You know, how much did you know about him going in?
Well, I knew a lot about Harry before we started making the movie, because in a lot of the other documentaries I'd made and a lot of the other work I'd done, I have a whole separate career in music television. Series like Live by Request or the Billboard Awards or all sorts of music specials. And my favorite people to work with are always songwriters. Because to me, songwriters are the ones who are kind of touched by God or whatever spirit you believe in. And they hear it and then they give it to us. And if it hits you hard, it's like falling in love. And Harry Nillson was one of those guys that so many people who I was working with always talked about as a friend, a colleague, somebody whose career they really admired, and the more stories I heard about him, the more we knew that this was a character who had an arc, a tragic arc, but an incredible story that nobody knew, and we've really only got to the tip of the iceberg of it in the film. But Nillson is really just one of those, nobody knows who he is, and the moment you hear his voice, you go, oh, that's the guy.
Yeah.
Do you feel like his career actually was not as big as it should have been?
It seems that Harry Nillson was quite determined not to have a big career. He essentially is the textbook example of how to both not be successful and how to self-destruct at the same time. And this is a movie show, I'll use a strange movie analogy. I think in my amateur psychological analysis of it is that it came so easily to him. He opened his mouth and this voice came out. He sat down at the piano and these songs came out. And so I think he didn't think his talent was worthwhile because it came so easily to him, in the same way that maybe Brando didn't make good decisions because how hard can this be?
Do you think because he came of age at a time when artists could do that? Today in the music industry, everything is so prepackaged, so pre-marketed, so designed, so fabricated. There would be a place for him today? I mean, that was such a unique era.
There's always a place for a great songwriter. I mean,
but would he have found his voice today, or would he have been sort of crushed by the machinery that has become the music industry today?
Well, in a sense, the machinery that was the music business then gave him the tools that allowed him to crush himself.
Interesting.
I mean, he was successful. His biggest album had a song called "Without You." Can't live if living is without you, and he didn't write that. He didn't write Everybody's Talking. So his two most well-known biggest hits he didn't write, which for a songwriter is one of the strange ironies, and his life abounds with them. But essentially the success he had gave him the ability to drink and drug as much as he wanted to and avoid work.
Right.
But that was also a product of that time. You know, it's funny, like when you look at songwriters who flamed out in the 60s and 70s, it seems like they flame out in a different way than music stars flame out today. You know, back then it just seems so much, I mean, just such drunken diving off of hotels and just doing cocaine everywhere. Somehow it seems like it's different today. I don't know why. I'm not sure whether it's because it's just a different culture, or pop music is different now. There's different types of people who are on the forefront of pop music, and they sort of they kind of work out their vices in different ways. Maybe they.
I think that the great artists of every generation, of every genre, of every artistic media do a lot of crazy stuff, and the question is whether they're going to survive it. I mean, I've made films about James Brown, John Lennon, Brian Wilson, the Bee Gees, Sinatra, and there's a lot of commonality in what happens with what Barry Gibb of the Bee Gees called first fame. Can you survive it? Because it twists your mind and gives you opportunities to screw up in ways that you can't imagine until you are that successful.
And so specifically, how did Harry screw up? Once he had that first fame, what did he do? What was his reaction?
The success, he disregarded it. He refused to tour. He almost never appeared live as a performer. He did a few television appearances and some promotional performances, but essentially was never a live performer. And he had, to my ear, perfect pitch, and so he wasn't somebody who could was worried about how he was going to sound and would have to lip sync. It wasn't anything like that. He had a terrible experience early in his career where an audience had basically just kind of laughed at he and his partner when they were doing Everly Brothers songs early on. And when he had success as a songwriter, it gave him enough of an income that he didn't have to tour. And there's a scene in the movie, very very well put together by the director John Scheinfeld and the editor Pete Lynch, where a whole bunch of his contemporaries, colleagues, and friends explain why he never performed. And his widow, Una, introduces, well, there are a lot of interesting theories as to why Harry never performed live, and then we see this montage of them. But essentially, he didn't, because he didn't have to. There was nothing in performing live that would give him anything that he needed.
And then who were, because in the movie, he had a lot of famous friends, including John Lennon, which I thought was amazing. So, you get somebody, they become famous, and, not to compare him to someone like Lindsay Lohan, but a lot of it becomes who's around you to pull you back from your worst impulses. Did Harry, watching this, Harry didn't really maybe have that person.
That's a really good point. He most definitely not only didn't have that person, but if someone like that appeared, he would drive him away. He wasn't going to tolerate anyone telling him what to do in any way, shape, or form. Perhaps the most painful interview we did for the film was with his second wife, the one he divorced right at the height of his big fame in the early 70s, and we did the interview in 2005. This is 30-something years after they'd been divorced, and the pain was etched on her face as if it had happened the day before. She had not survived her experience loving and living with Harry Nillson because she couldn't stop him, and his friends couldn't stop him. His famous friends couldn't stop him. Some of them enabled his excesses. Some of them walked away from him when he was behaving excessively, and others shook their heads and cried at what they saw, but nobody could stop him.
Tell us about, because it's so interesting, about Harry's father, and how, first of all, tell us a story about how Harry discovered his father, and also how you think maybe that fed his personality growing older. Having a father, losing a father, getting him back. Tell people the story, and then kind of tell how you think that folds into Harry's personality.
Harry was abandoned when he was a little boy. One of his most beautiful songs is called 1941. And the lyric is in 1941, a father had a son. In 1944, that father walked right out the door. So he was abandoned by his father. His mother was quite a larger-than-life character, and he ended up living in a very strange world with a big, extended family. And at some point in his teens, one of his relatives said, well, you're not going to be able to live here anymore. We just kind of can't afford you and your appetite. And he was abandoned. He found himself an abandoned child repeatedly. And so he had, with all, the kind of psychobabble we put on our characters, he just was on his own. And that's the way he stayed. The first son that he had with his second wife, he abandoned also.
Wow.
And the boys in the movie, and he talks about the irony of Harry's life reflecting his own as a child, and then as a father, he has a 3-year-old son and he gets a divorce. He and his father did connect.
But he thought
he thought his father was dead. He'd been told his father was dead, and all of a sudden, Dad shows up alive, not only alive, but with a new wife and new children. And so it's
a movie.
There's a lot of movies in Harry's life, and unfortunately, none of them are really happy movies. It's a tragic story of wasted talent. It's a story of excess and self-destruction, which makes it a great story for us as filmmakers. But unlike The U.S. versus John Lennon, or The Night James Brown Saved Boston, or Beautiful Dream, or Brian Wilson and the Story of Smile, there's no happy ending here.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really.
And it leaves you with a lot of regret too, because as with so many artists, Buddy Holly and many others who died before their time, you think, what could he have done if he had had just another 2, 3, 4, 5 years?
Well, I don't feel that in this case.
Had he not sort of imploded as he did?
Well, he had. I mean, one of the most horrifying sequences that you can imagine as a singer with that kind of voice. There's a scene in the movie where we hear his friends and colleagues talk about Harry and John Lennon getting into a screaming battle in the studio. Who could shriek the loudest?
Oh, how silly.
And as one of them describes, it didn't end until Harry's blood was on the mic screen. And he never really recovered from that, this beautiful, beautiful voice. He destroyed his instrument purposely, per Richard Perry, who produced his most successful album. He said Harry had a death wish. He says, I'm not sure why. He said it took him 20 years to carry it out. But it's really, it's kind of a lesson in what not to do with your talent and your success.
Now, there's just going behind the scenes, there's a lot of amazing interviews you lined up for this. I mean, Brian Wilson and Mickey Dolenz.
I love Mickey Dolenz.
Mickey Dolenz, everybody.
Yes.
You know, oh, wait. Wade will love this. Wade, you've seen it. You know what I'm talking about. Paul Williams. How happy were you when Paul Williams
Very happy.
We are just
big Paul Williams fans. We grew up with all that Paul Williams stuff.
By the way, it's true.
Soft as an easy chair.
We've only just begun. Those are your songs.
Randy Newman, Brian Wilson.
Yes.
I mean, it's amazing. I mean, how did you find that these people were easy to get? Were they easy to book? Were they into the project? Did they have to be coerced, paid, cajoled?
I think what's gotten easier for us over the years, because nobody really wants to sit in front of the camera and talk about their dead friend. I mean, that's just not fun. As much as they loved him, it was painful to kind of dredge up some of the memories from the questions we were asking. But what we've been able to do in the 15 years we've been making these documentaries is earn the trust of the artistic community, so that if we say to a Randy Newman or whomever, we're doing this, will you participate? They can look at our work and go, okay, they're not going to exploit Harry. This isn't going to be behind the music.
Really? So now when you say that, I know you're just sort of saying it, but is there something about Behind the Music that you felt that, you know, because you saw those shows?
We pitched this to Behind the Music and they didn't buy it.
Really?
I mean, it was very strange. I mean, the process was, we're sitting there and we're going, we've got a story for you. It's going to have the Beatles and Monty Python and Robin Williams and Dustin Hoffman, Randy Newman, and on and on. And they sat for, what is it? And we'd go, Harry Nillson. And they'd go, who is Harry Nillson? And so that's really where the name came from. And there was a movie that Dustin Hoffman made, who was Harry Kellerman, and was right after, I think, Midnight Cowboy. And Midnight Cowboy was where everybody's talking. So it's like, okay, the wheels are turning. Who is Harry Nillson, and why is everybody talking about him? And as Tommy Smothers says in the movie, you either know right away who he is, or you have no idea who he is.
Well, he has a funny story in the movie about the Smothers Brothers had a comeback concert, and John Lennon and Harry showed up to the concert, and you can continue the story.
Well, the euphemism for John Lennon's 16 or 17 months in Los Angeles is the lost weekend. It's a very long lost weekend of debauchery, really. And Harry was the perfect partner for that until even John got tired of it and went back to New York. But they would go out and get blasted. And one of the places they would go to was the Troubadour. And the Smothers Brothers were making their big comeback appearance. They had been, it's hard to imagine today, but in the late 60s, the Smothers Brothers were radical television hosts. They were doing shows that got them literally thrown off CBS just for presenting singer-songwriters like Pete Seeger. I mean, it's almost inconceivable that they could be viewed as the enemy, if you will. And so this was their comeback show in Los Angeles. The Smothers Brothers are back in show business, and as Tommy Smothers says in the movie, he says our act depends on spaces, on beats. It's a comedy performance that requires a lot of silence. And of course, Harry Nillson was however many sheets to the wind he was that night. He says, John, they don't like silence, so whenever there's quiet in the act, shout something out. And they did, and they got thrown out, and there was a big brawl, and it's just one of those legendary, ugly Hollywood stories. As John Lennon even says in the movie, he says, when Errol Flynn and the old Hollywood movie stars would do that, it was colorful. He says, I do it, and I'm, a bum.
But it shows how influential and popular he was. That he had all these famous people he would hang out with. These are musical geniuses who don't hang out with people who don't bring it.
His peers, Jimmy Webb, Randy Newman, Van Dyke Parks, Brian Wilson, all the people who were part of the great LA singer-songwriter world of that time, they admired Harry tremendously because they knew how talented he was. I mean, from the first solo album on, it was obvious how talented he was.
Here's a question, too, about all these artists. Could he have been who he was? Could he have been that talented if not for his vices? Did his vices inform his talent? Did his vices destroy his talent? Or is it a little bit of both?
I don't... I mean, he talked about one song that he wrote on an acid trip. So it's hard to, and believe me, a lot of great songs have been written on one pharmaceutical or another. So it's a fair question. I think most of his great work would have happened without being under the influence, and so the damage was much more severe than the benefit.
So now, you've got the DVD. The DVD includes deleted scenes.
Yes, one of the great things about DVD for us when it came along was because you're sitting in the editing room, and if it's a television slot, you got to lose something, or even it's theatrical, take it out, it's too long. And when DVD came along, we just put it in the bonus section, and it kind of saved a lot of fighting in the editing room. It was a good thing, and Harry inspired the kind of stories that couldn't be told in short sound bites. And Jimmy Webb, who is an incredible storyteller and one of Harry's two best friends, Ringo Starr being the other one, tells these amazing stories about Harry coming over and saying, "Can I borrow your car?" And then 4 days later calls from New York. And he says, by the way, I wrecked the car where I'm having it shipped back. But those aren't stories that you want to hear like that. You want to hear the full. I mean, they're like kind of like Irish folk tales. And so we've got a lot of those, and a lot of other very enjoyable tales of Harry tales. We literally could have made a movie of just everyone telling their favorite Harry story, and it would have been entertaining. And in a sense, that's what the bonus material does.
So now you're done with this. You got the DVD, which is highly recommended. Who is Harry Nillson? Now, do you take a break before you jump into the next project, or do you just have to continually churn and burn and work?
Well, interestingly enough, this was essentially finished a few years ago, and we played a couple of festivals, and we just had some licensing issues that delayed it coming out. So subsequent to this, we made the U.S. versus John Lennon,
which is great.
Thank you. The Night James Brown Saved Boston. John Scheinfeld, who not only wrote and directed Harry, but was the one who never gave up, who kept pushing no matter how much rejection we got. He was just he was a bull in the china shop to make sure that this film got finished and out. He made a movie about the Chicago Cubs, kind of a lovable losers movie. And actually, one of the things that was great about making documentaries is it allowed me to go back to what I wanted to do originally, which was write movies, and walk in and say, okay, I know how to tell a story now. Here's a script about whomever. And so some of the people who we've made documentaries about have been working on feature scripts on like Groucho Marx, for example.
Oh, Groucho Marx movie?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm first in line for that. Groucho's he's amazing. He's like, Groucho's the best.
He sort of invented comedy.
Oh, yeah.
For the sound era.
For the sound era.
The sound era, yeah.
And I didn't realize, I just read this, I'm sure you probably know this because you're a big Groucho fan. I didn't realize that Billy Wilder was working on a film, a Marx Brothers film that was going to take place in the UN. It was in 1960-61. They were supposed to be working on something.
Billy Wilder's writing partner, as you know, Izzy Diamond. His son is a friend of mine.
Oh, wow.
Oh, really?
And he and I actually have been looking at the notes from that. The story is that Billy Wilder and Diamond were on a plane coming back from New York, and there was traffic everywhere, and they're kind of sitting on the ground at what was then Idlewild Airport in New York, now JFK. And why the delay? Well, all these Russian and communist diplomats are in town, and there's all this security. Wouldn't this be a funny place to put a Marx Brothers movie? And it actually progressed. It wasn't just a notion. Wilder called Groucho, and Groucho said, for anybody else, the answer would be no, but for you, yes. And they were going to do it, and then Chico had a heart attack and was uninsurable, and it never happened.
Wow. And you have notes? Are these script notes or just story beats?
We have some story beats that were It's kind of it's both the
Write down my email. Hang on.
It's the Great Lost Marx Brothers movie and the Great Lost Billy Wilder story.
Yeah.
Oh, can you imagine?
Wow.
Billy
Go
Wilder.
back in time.
Billy Wilder
50
doing a
years
Marx
later.
Brothers film.
If that had happened.
I would say buy it on Byron.
And Paul, don't be mad at me for talking about this, but he brought it up.
Right. Okay. So here we go. So
we got questions from the room.
Oh, we got questions from the room. I was about to plug the DVD. Who is Harry Nillson?
A couple of these. Let's see. Lady Dio asks, maybe I don't know if this is a Marx brother, Groucho Marx or not. So one particular artist you're just waiting to do a film on.
There are a number of musical artists who I want to do films, whether it's scripted or documentary. Stevie Wonder, Paul McCartney, Elton John, Billy Joel. I've been wanting to do a Rufus Wainwright film. He's my favorite 21st century songwriter. You were talking before about where do people in the music business fit in differently than they might have 40 years ago. Rufus is kind of a throwback. He went through some kind of terrible 20s of some self-destructive behavior, and he's come out on the other side and is continuing to produce great work.
Fascinating.
From a scripted point of view, Groucho's certainly at the top of the list, and then I have a rock and roll conspiracy movie that I'd like to see get made.
And may you make all of them.
Well, thank you.
What else, Mike?
Skillas from the chat room asks, what other artists like Nillson would you recommend to people would you suggest people don't know about but they really should?
Oh boy.
In that era, I guess.
Well, I guess any artist, you know.
Well, Rufus Wainwright is somebody who I don't think has gotten the kind of attention he should have given his talent. I think he's the best songwriter, best contemporary songwriter going.
Didn't you find it strange that they closed the Liberace Museum? You know, they closed the Liberace Museum, and you're like...
Did you ever drive by it?
No,
You would never go in. I mean, you drive by, it's in a strip mall. And there's nothing really enticing about it.
But he was so famous when he was alive. He was Liberace, right? Piano and the thing and the candelabras and the capes, whatever. And now it's like he dies. He's still Liberace, and then they dismantle this one thing that you thought would live forever. So when Liberace was on his deathbed, at least I have my museum. People will always know about me. Swing and a miss.
Who's making a movie starring as Liberace? You would think they would have wanted to.
That's been on the books for a long time. That's never gotten.
Was it Michael Douglas or
a lot of false starts?
Mm-hmm.
But you would have thought it would have been worth it to them to keep the museum open.
Right. Yeah. Although I could see in the Liberace film, the very first scene will be the dismantling of the Liberace, the building that it's in. They take like a big wrecking ball and they destroy the museum. And wow, tragic story. This guy's his legacy is gone now. Then you go, cut back 40 years. Write that down.
A couple more questions.
And to answer the person who wanted to know more about Harry Nillson from his era, people like Randy Newman, Van Dyke Parks, Jimmy Webb, Lowell George, and Little Feat, people who kind of had their moments in the sun and maybe are worthy of a deeper look. Really, great songwriters is always my focus.
I know you sort of answered this with the DVD. Jamal Fox asks, what parts of the doc were cut that you'd like to have kept in? Which then I guess probably showed up on the DVD.
Actually, I would say the director and I didn't fight him on it too much because he worked so damn hard to make everything happen. But I think the movie could have been a little bit shorter, as it is. So there's nothing in the bonus material that really needs to be. There's just so much of it. I mean, Harry Nillson wrote a song that Phil Spector produced and took a co-writing credit on, and we don't even mention that in the movie. If I have my facts straight, I think both Mama Cass and Keith Moon both died in his apartment in London. I mean, not a mention of it. I mean, there's just so many sidebars that we didn't have time to go into. Harry Nillson is somebody who you should go by the first, say, 6 or 7 albums.
Of rock and roll right there. It kind of connects in, it seems like, with his life.
Yeah. Kind
of all the rock and rollers, you're talking Mama Cass and Keith Moon, all these connections of John Lennon.
Of that generation, certainly.
Sure. And SFM Corey, any interesting revelations that came out while you reviewed the footage? So something you might have not known about that sort of came out as you were reviewing, you're looking for?
I have to say, this unlike most of the other documentaries we've done, this was almost constant revelation. Because until people sit across from you and tell you these stories, there's no way you would know it. You hear that he's crazy, you hear that he's wild, but when you sit across from Paul Williams or Jimmy Webb or Danny Hutton from Three Dog Night, and they're telling you these much larger than life stories. Mickey Dolenz tells a story about Harry calling him from the emergency room and picking him up, and Harry saying, well, make sure you bring a bottle of this and a pack of cigarettes. And you were asking before about did his friends stop him, and Mickey goes, I didn't bring the cigarettes.
Wasn't it brandy he wanted him to bring?
Yeah,
brandy. But he brought the brandy.
He brought the brandy. Yes.
I didn't realize that Harry had written one. What's the loneliest number?
This is where art is so incredible. He's got a busy signal on the phone. You couldn't get a busy signal really anymore. Who do you know who doesn't have call waiting? Yeah. And he hears the beep, 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 and he stayed with the busy. One is he just wrote the song listening to the busy signal. Now that's a song that he records. Danny Hutton, who was obsessed with finding great songs for Three Dog Night to record, hears it, and they turn it into a #1 record. I mean, it was the music community is always small. And I don't think that's any different than today. Everyone kind of knows everybody. They run into each other. Hey, I got a song you should record. Who's the guy, Bruno, who was just on Saturday Night Live? Was it Bruno Mars?
Bruno Mars.
Oh, yeah. Just incredible young songwriter artist. And he's standing there, he looked like Elvis Presley on the Ed Sullivan Show, like, I know this is my moment. Yeah. And so I think great artists come along all the time. I think what happens in our too fast world, we eat them up and spit them out a lot faster.
That's a good point.
Even though they used to have to work more.
That's a good point.
People you get sick of them faster for whatever reason.
We're exposed to them more. There are everywhere you go, you can download songs, you can hear them, you hear everything. I mean, we consume media all day long, every day. So we used to, more radio stations, more television stations. It's easier to get overexposed.
For sure.
And yet, thanks to the internet, we happen to know that a little movie called Who is Harry Nillson is available on DVD. Ladies and gentlemen, David Lee.
And we'll be sure to put that up on our sites as well. We're going to put this segment up on YouTube and on Blip, and we'll include a link that will take you right to Amazon so people can buy this easily. And we'll have it up on the site, right?
Awesome.
Thank you.
I'm guessing,
There you go, David Lee. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Buy, rent, or burn.
Oh, are you kidding?
Buy it.
Gotta buy this thing. Come on. Why would we have you on unless it was a buy? No Brent for you. We're going whole hog on the buy. There it is.
Good.
TriCast Remley. Okay, so David, thank you. Next week we have Laura Keilinger on to talk about Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer.
So watch it.
For a Halloween show.
Skype in, chat in. You'll talk about that movie for Halloween. Mark will be dressed as, or Slave Leia maybe. But can you get Slave Leia? Something. You'll be dressed, Mark will be dressed up as something.
Something kinky.
Wade.
Something kinky.
Say goodbye to the good folks.
Goodbye to the good folks.
Yay! Thanks, David.